Okay, so that's what's in our buffer. Remember, to re-execute what's in the buffer, you can simply type in a /. We've already issued a combination of SQL statements and SQL Plus statements, and I want to clarify to you what the difference between these two things is. First of all, SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's used by a lot of different relational database systems, not only Oracle, but also Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, and so on. And so all of these different types of database systems use this technology called SQL to extract information from the database. So a lot of times people will call Microsoft SQL Server simply SQL, and that's actually not 100% accurate. Okay, it's SQL Server, so please don't mix up the two. SQL Plus is an Oracle-specific tool to let you tap into the database. Think of it as the interface. You need to have some kind of program that lets you get into the database. Now, SQL Plus is not the only tool out there, but it does automatically come bundled with the Oracle download. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side here in red are examples of SQL statements. Select star from emp. That would grab all of the rows in our emp table. Our second example, delete from emp where job equals manager. That would delete every row in our table where the job is equal to manager. We also have examples of insert statements. Here we're just inserting a row. Joe Schmo, his employee number is 9999 and he's a sales rep. Commit, that just means to save the data that you've already manipulated. Rollback is the opposite of commit. It says undo all of the information since the last commit or rollback. Okay, so now on to SQL Plus commands. Notice that none of these commands have a semicolon at the end. If you were to put a semicolon there, it wouldn't hurt anything. It's just not required. So any of your set commands or any of your column formatting commands are all SQL Plus. Well, why do we make a distinction between SQL and SQL Plus? Well, the big reason here is because when we're dealing with our buffer, which we'll talk about in just a moment, you'll see the difference. When you issue a SQL statement, whatever your last SQL statement is, that will get saved in the buffer. Your SQL Plus statements do not get saved in the buffer. So you see here that there's lots of SQL Plus statements that help you format your output. Now keep in mind that this formatting is only good for the session. In other words, if I issue this set line size statement, it's only good until I set it to something else within the session. If I exit out and then get back into SQL Plus, it's forgotten everything. Now if I put these SQL Plus statements inside of a script, then they stick with that script. Now we've got 14 rows of output. Looks like Smith here was hired in December of 1980. We're assuming 1980. How do we know it's not 2080? Well, by issuing an alter session set NLS date format to a different format, we can change that. So it looks like our session has been altered. Now we can re-execute what's in there. Select department number, and so on. And see how our date looks a little better? So yes, indeed, this person was hired in 1980. Boy, I think I was wearing purple leg warmers that year. I must have been in 6th grade. Oh, I just dated myself. Okay, let's take a look at the salary. Do we like this salary? Well, I hope this is monthly and not yearly. Let's format it. A SQL Plus statement to format a column is like this. You say column, or just COL for short, then the column name, format, and here we're putting a $sign and we're putting commas every 3 digits. The .00 means to display those numbers no matter what after the decimal point. Okay, so we go ahead and re-execute our statement by issuing /. There we go. Looks a little bit better. Describe, column, set, those are all SQL Plus statements. They're not saved in the buffer. That's why we could hit a / and it would re-execute our statement. Now, the alter session statement, that was actually a SQL statement and that was put in our buffer. Now let's change our heading. Our e-name heading up here, I don't like that. Let's change it to say employee name. Since I want those 2 words to appear on different lines, I'll separate them by the pipe character. So now re-execute it. Looks a little bit better. We can do the same thing with our salary. We can say column, sal, heading, salary. By default, your headings will have these little dashes. You can change that to something else with the set command. Here we're changing the dash to an equal sign. That looks a little bit different. Let's add another column to our query. So here's our query, and I want to tack something on to the end of line 1. So the way we do that is we first make line number 1 be our current line. Now we can use the append statement or just A for short. Make sure you do 2 spaces after the A, and then you specify what you want to tack on. Okay, so here we'll do a comma, and let's also list the commission. Okay. Now those 2 spaces are only necessary if you want the first character that you're adding to be a space. I'm just showing you how to do that. Never put in quotes because the quotes will automatically go in the query. So we re-execute it, and some of our employees have commissions. Our commission column is also a monetary data type, so wouldn't it be nice to have the formatting look like the salary formatting? Well, one shortcut for doing that is to say col, com, like, sal. Now it's also a good idea to specify what the heading is going to look like, otherwise it will have the same heading as the salary. Not a good idea. So here we'll say heading commission. Now we go ahead and re-execute that. That looks great. Let's also make the job column be a little bit wider, so we can say call job format, and let's say A15. Great. How about undoing any of your formatting for the columns? You do that with the clear command. For example, if I want to clear the commission formatting, I say call com clear. If I want to clear it for all of the columns, I'll say clear columns. Now this is not going to affect the hire date because remember, hire date is a date data type, and that can only be manipulated by NLS date format, altering the session like I showed you earlier. Okay, so looks good. Keep in mind that your buffer is only going to save the last SQL statement that you executed. So you can imagine how frustrating it can be if you have this really long SQL statement and then you issue this other SQL statement, then your original one is gone. Unless, of course, you save the SQL statement to a file. And the way we do that is with the save command. So here's what's in our buffer. We can simply say save, and then we specify our own file name with the .SQL extension. So we'll call this allemp.sql. Okay, so now, where is this file going to be saved? It will be saved in the directory from where we launched SQL+. If you want to save it to a different directory, that's fine. Just put the full path. How about executing your statement or executing whatever is in your file? You can say @allemp. Let me show you one more example. Let's change up our query. So instead of saying order by 2 for line 3, we're going to say where job equals president. Okay, so this is what our query looks like. We can save this, and we'll give a full path this time. We'll put it in the temp directory and call it president.sql. Okay, so let's execute the president. Okay, that didn't sound really good, but you know what I mean. Okay, so the way we execute that is C:\temp president. We do not have to put the .SQL extension. There we go. As a DBA, you're going to use this a lot. I have hundreds of DBA scripts that help me along to find things like table spaces that need to be shrunk down, things like that. So far, all of our output has just been splashed to the screen. I'd like to keep a hard copy of all the stuff that's been going on, so we can issue the spool statement to do that. It's kind of like the T command in Unix and Linux, where it goes both to the screen and to a file. So if I say spool output.txt, and then I issue some statements, for example, execute what's in my buffer, do all sorts of things like that, I can issue as many statements as I want to, and then when I'm finished with my spooling, I say